Partnered by Times Influence.
Today we will have a panel discussion on Fintech as part of our second Future of Technology at Work. This is an Economic Times and SP Jain presentation. So the question is, why Fintech? What is the future of Fintech? So Fintech is a combination of finance and technology, making it Fintech. Why is it important? Technology is reducing costs through automation. And these costs are very important because if a bank reduces its cost by 25% and they pass this on to their customers, imagine what it will do for business. It has a cascading effect right through the business economic system. It is technology, your knowledge of data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things. This is what is driving Fintech. I'm going to leave it here, and with great pleasure, I now invite the editor of Economic Times, Vinod, to speak next.
Thank you, Mr. Jain, and good morning. Every part of the chain in financial services, every small niche is being disrupted by one of the smaller players. Nimbler, more lithe, but more lethal. If you see the new players, they don't have any branch. They don't have any existing businesses to protect. They don't have legacy IT systems. They just have one thing in mind, the customer. The customer who wants more transparency, customer who wants more accessibility, customer who wants better experience. And Fintech is providing that. Fintech is filling that void. That's basically the context. I'd like to invite Pooja to take it forward from there. Thank you so much.
Where Fintech's impact is most felt is in the context of disintermediation, the removal of the middleman. But what are the implications of entering the workforce in an era where business processes are getting re-engineered and the need for manpower is becoming increasingly less? And Shavi, I'd really like to start with you.
There is a complete change in business models. So initially in the world of finance, you had banks or issuers and you had customers, and that was really the interaction. And perhaps you had a payment platform provider like Visa, for example, but the business model is completely changed. Today you have at minimum 4 or 5 players in that entire process in terms of looking at certain slivers of the value chain and really innovating in that sliver. And I think that's what's resulted in the change in business model.
Well, building on what Shavi has said, and Manavjit, my question is to you. Where do the job opportunities in Fintech lie within the face of growing global automation?
In India specifically, because it's largely, 99% of the market in financial services is still offline. So how you bring in those customers online? So it's going to be a lot of offline to online shift which will be happening. So that again, so in my opinion, is going to be sort of an assisted online model for some time. So these are the opportunities like in different aspects, and I personally feel that the largest part of it is going to be around the data, machine learnings, and how you're going to crunch the timelines from the consumer's point of view.
There are many dynamics to the India market that make it especially unique. We've got mobile internet penetration of upwards of 400 million. We've got a very large underserved market. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that certain segments of the market are just unserved entirely. And then we've got a growing pool of technical talent. And that's all of you, combined with managerial expertise. So that brings me to the question, is India poised to become the next global fintech hub? And Vikram, I'd like to start with you.
Business cannot go without technology or finance. And that's where I feel that fintech has unique position in India. Now, when we talk about different areas of fintech, so there are total 5 subdomains within the fintech. Okay, so now when we talk about let's say lending, payments, we have insurance technology, we have wealth management technology, and then we have RegTech, which is kind of a combination of all of these areas. So we require talent today in India across these 5 small segments within the fintech itself.
Right. Well, building on that, as you hire, what are the qualities you look for? What is it about their experience that tells you that they've gotten training in fintech that's not simply abstract, but that's hands-on and multidisciplinary?
Interesting question. So probably it's important to lay down the context of the skills that we think is very important. So someone who understands technology inside out is definitely a plus. Right? You can find a lot of the CEOs today You can have very deep technology conversations because for them technology is business. Technology is the difference between being able to scale up to 200 million transactions versus 20 million transactions. The second part of it is, which sometimes is a very implicit part but gets missed out, is part of success of fintechs or progressive tech-led organizations, let me put as a broader theme, right, is the fact that they're very open to partnerships. Very, very traditionally different from old world organizations which were built around very vertical integration, right? The third area which really helps is, and I remember like 10 years back when we used to do seminars, we'll say technology will support business, technology will enable business. But right now we have reached a stage where I feel technology is business.
Do you agree with that school of thought, sir, that the lines between technology and business have blurred to such an extent that technology is business?
Yeah, very true, So I remember, when I started my career and I have spent now 25 years, technology was just the support function. Today, the bank is running on technology. Banking has changed drastically. And like, for example, when we go to campuses and try to hire people, the most important thing which we see is that apart from, say, financial background, what else they know. Many times we don't take people with financial background. Many times we don't recruit lateral hires from banks. We are going to retail sector. We are looking at payment industry, right? Because people with that skill sets are very, very important. So I think the difference between a hardcore technology guy and business guy is not relevant now because you need both to really survive in this. And bank like us who are sort of working on fully on partnership model, we require more of those who can understand the ecosystem, understand the market, understand the partnership, and work on the new vision, as we say, digital-only bank of future. I think that is critical.
Well, Naveen, what we just heard is that banks are changing drastically. My question to you is, are banks changing drastically enough?
Great question. Banks are changing. However, I think collaboration is the key, right? What Bank Bazaar is trying to do with the banks or any other financial institution is to get them to leapfrog. Make it instant. Make the consumer feel that there is a simple and easy way to access any financial product. Now that, I think it's a mindset change. Honestly, banks are changing, but at Bank Bazaar, we would have to work with the compliance team, with the legal team, with the product team, with the business team, the info security team. After everyone is convinced, the risk team, because you're going to lend, so you have to underwrite. You need to know which person is coming for which product, whether we can actually give that product, in a paperless manner. So if I see, yes, banks are moving, but are they moving fast enough is the question. I think it is fintech and banks together who will move them faster and reach that. So I think everybody is going to be future ready. Everybody is looking at that. And fintechs like us are collaborating to get that happen here.
And Chavi, I'd like to bring you in here. How optimistic are you about the regulatory uncertainties plaguing the industry? And how would you advise students for whom that might pose a concern?
Sure. So first of all, I am actually very optimistic about our regulators in India with respect to innovation and fintech. Having worked personally with regulators in the US, UK, Singapore, and India, I think our regulators are very open-minded. What we need to keep in mind is India is a very complex country. Financial literacy is still something we are working towards. So the regulators constantly battle with maintaining security, control, making sure, money moves properly versus balancing it with innovation. And I think they're doing a pretty fantastic job in that spectrum. A couple of things I think that all of you have to keep in mind and things that I think we always are constantly also very cognizant of in this industry is just to keep abreast with certain regulations. There is, in a matter of the last 12 months, huge changes in regulations, right from the amount that can be transacted on, say, a wallet platform, which is, a closed platform, to eKYC, to e-sign. So personally, I think the pace at which regulations are changing in our country to accommodate for innovation is pretty significant. It's pretty high.
I think the point, Pooja, you asked, what about the students? I believe in India today, fintech, because of the government support of India Stack and the innovation that we are creating in India, is something that the world is looking at. This digital leap that we are taking in India today, you are lucky to be in India. You are lucky that you will have opportunities to work on these innovations.
A lot of that energy is being put towards bridging the urban and rural divide in India. And Septim, I'd love to bring you in here. What role does and can fintech play in this whole equation?
This is a huge opportunity, and fintech's enabling it in multiple ways to democratize, whether it's credit, whether it's savings, whether it's investment, whether it's payments, right? And you're seeing that across the space. So besides just the tech jobs, there are new business models and new business opportunities which this is creating. For example, whether it's MSME lending, which is all growing very rapidly, whether it's lending for affordable housing, all of those players are growing very, very rapidly. So a lot of these new business models are being enabled by that. And I think there's a huge opportunity for fintechs because of their agility, because of their low cost, because of the innovation that they can do, to partner with the banks or independently themselves, drive a lot of these waves going forward.
When we think about fintech, I think a lot of times we think just urban. But I think the scope in the rural areas or the underserved areas is huge. So again, from your perspective and everyone sitting out here, the opportunity lies there. There's huge amounts of work that I think every financial institution is doing. A lot of fintechs are looking at, and a lot of us here who are enablers are kind of looking at how we can leverage on. Thank you.
And my next question is to Vikram, and this may be a question on many people's minds. How is fintech changing employment dynamics? Is fintech making jobs disappear?
The jobs which will be available will be very different. You require different skill set, and for that you require different learning experience as well, right? You require someone who has practical insight, who have worked on industry, on the job, and has some experience implementing these new technologies. And that's where I believe that the entire practical approach is required. And for example, we have this, we are setting up blockchain lab, we are setting up IoT lab. So how IoT will interact with smart contracts, for example. How smart contract will change the way people are transacting today, right? Tomorrow's market is going to be very different. And then you need to reskill yourself based on whatever area you like. That is fine. But you need to know about these new technologies like blockchain, then you have big data, AI, ML, you have Internet of Things and Internet on Things. So there are multiple things available today in market. Not many people know about that.
Picking up on the blockchain example, I think we are emphasizing too much on technology. I think it's easy to learn technology. The difficult thing is to create a use case around it. Okay, so I don't think you need to have a formal degree in technology to really do a great fintech. If you really look at all these people who are successful, they found a niche area. They solved a problem for the consumer. It's not that all this digitization is only revolving around the urban world. It is what we call is the digitization through assisted mode, right? So if you really look at the rural area, there the people may not be may not have self-service devices, but they are assisted by an agent, right? And we have all the remittance business flowing through that micro ATM which she talked about. So I think the technology paradigm is changing, whether it is rural or urban. And the most important thing is how do you solve a problem rather than just look at the technology and get excited about it.
And one thing I really admire about this generation and all of you is this heightened awareness around financial inclusion, wanting to achieve a triple bottom line in the careers that you pursue. And Manavjeet, my next question is to you. Do you think part of that is what's fueling the growing infatuation for opportunities in fintech?
So there's a very large part of India who's still not having access to finance. So, and for them, technology means nothing. So they're really not bothered what exactly is working behind that. All they're looking at what is the convenient, what is there for them. So I have learned few things, in fact, I personally feel that you have to unlearn some few things. So we realize one thing, that you exist because you're solving some particular issue for a particular customer. And if you're not really helping that consumer, get over that particular problem, then it's meaningless whichever technology you use.
Chavi, Manavjit brought up a fascinating point about having to unlearn. So my question to you is, what have you unlearned in your own professional career, and your guidance to our audience as fintech is rapidly evolving? What may be subjects, patterns of behavior that they're going to need to unlearn?
So the fact is that, yes, you have to unlearn, but you can also take a lot of the learnings that you've developed over time and, in the concept of collaboration and partnership, merge them with what's going on in the world today. So that was my personal experience, but I think for all of you here, it's very simple. Just stay curious. I think the whole intent today has changed from, I've got to make a lot of money for all of you, to I've got to solve a problem, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling model which will make money and which will be profitable at the end of the day.
Also, strategies, innovation is not coming from the top any longer. It's not driven necessarily by a central strategy, but a lot of it is going to be driven by you. I think in the roles you play, in the projects you lead, even when you sort of start your careers. So the hierarchies are breaking down.
Look, we've come a long way from the piggy bank to Paytm. So my question, and I pose this to the entire panel, is what does the future of fintech look like?
Yep, I think that's an interesting question. So I think, one, it'll be very pervasive. We won't even realize when we're using it. Second, I think it'll be far more intuitive than today. It'll be far more relatable than it is today. And I think a lot of that will happen not only for the most educated urban users, but as well as for users, whether they're in the tier 4 cities, rural areas. So that enablement will really come to fore.
So as we all sit here, the simple answer is, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years from now. None of us here can tell you what's going to happen for 5 years from now. But the one thing I will tell you is, I can leave my home today without my wallet, but I cannot leave my home today without my mobile phone. Because I can do financial transactions on my mobile phone, I can order an Uber on my mobile phone and pay for it, I can do banking, money transfers on my mobile phone, and I think that's just very, very representative of what's about to come. Technology and fintech is all going to be in the background. It's going to be part of our daily lives.
But I always think about, next couple of years, what exactly we can contribute. And as I said, like my wish list, in the first stop on that is that somebody who's taking a SME loan in a small part in India is able to do using the phone and get some money in probably in minutes. So that's something I think is possible, is doable in the next couple of years.
So it is difficult to predict accurately, but what I can clearly see that is integrating different technologies in use cases, practical use cases, like governments are working on land registry on blockchain. Then you have smart insurance contract on blockchain itself. You have IoT sensors which will tell that, okay, there is a drought or flooding in this area and you are getting this contracts triggered, right? So you have much more integrated use case around that. And that's what I can see in future, that more and more practical use case around this technology will be there.
And Vivek, where are you placing your bets as far as the future of fintech?
So my prediction is, in each of these aspects, irrespective of whether it is Bharat or India, whether it is retail or corporate, I think the friction is going to come down by 80 to 90%, if I have to give an overarching statement. What it really means is, at that point, for me to get served on a financial services need as an individual or as a SME or as a corporate, whatever we are seeing the timeline and convenience today, it would be 80 to 90% faster.
So I think going forward, I feel the fintech and bank boundary will not be there. So I think the whole construct of the way the whole financial products will be delivered, the way the two will collaborate, the way everything will be thought through and looked upon as a use case rather than as a bundle of services, I think that's the way the banking will change. And the fintechs will become a very, very integral part of that journey.
So all the panelists have, given their views. I kind of echo it, but what I would like to highlight is the consumer will be at the center. The experience that drives anything to do with financial services will be in the center. 2016 was the year of cashless. I think this is the year, 2017, of presenceless. And I think next year, 2018, will be the year of paperless. Now, if I combine all these three together and I keep the consumer in the center, it's less friction, it is seamless. So I think that's the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, a huge round of applause for all of our panelists. Now, with that, the combined wealth of knowledge in this room has made for a fascinating discussion on the future of fintech. I thank you all for being a part of it, and I look forward to the future of fintech unfolding.
Partnered by Times Influence.